A potentially confusing situation arises in visualizing the digital thread when there are multiple versions of the same configuration-managed model element. The Digital Thread Explorer in the Syndeia Web Dashboard Release 3.4 manages this situation through the use of merged nodes, and this video explains how this works. Let's begin with a user creating a Syndeia intermodel connection between a requirement in a Doors or JAMA repository to a code file in a configuration-managed repository such as GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. From Syndeia's perspective, this connection is to a specific version of the code file. We'll call that version 1. A software engineer commits a new version of the code file to the Git repository and uses Syndeia to create a new connection from the new version of the code file to a test case in a tool such as TestRail or Zephyr Scale. Syndeia recognizes that the connections are to different versions of the code file, but in the Digital Thread Explorer, it will merge them into a single symbol. The merge is represented by a dashed outline around that node. This approach allows a viewer to expand an extended set of connections across the digital thread, rather than dead-ending the expansion of the chain because of a version change. If Syndeia allows us to update the first connection to the latest version of the code file, then the dashed outline disappears. Both connections are to version 2 of the code file. A caution, in Syndeia Release 3.4, updating or syncing connections is not available through the Syndeia Web Dashboard, and not all integrations support compare and update operations. See the user guide for more information. We see a similar situation unfold live when the Digital Explorer shows a combination of intermodel and intramodel connections. From the Syndeia Web Dashboard, we select a SysML model element in a Teamwork Cloud repository. Right-clicking, we go to Graph View and expand this element to show its connections to elements in GitLab, JAMA Connect, and Jira in blue. These are all intermodel connections managed by Syndeia. If we expand the Jira issue ME8, we see that it has an intramodel connection to another Jira issue, ME2. When we expand a Jira node, Syndeia goes to the Jira repository and asks for all intramodel connections to the Jira element in the current state of the repository, as well as searching its internal database for any additional intermodel connections. We also see the ME8 node has the dashed outline, identifying it as a merged node. Its two connections are to different versions of ME8. Because the query to the Jira repository when we expanded ME8 shows only the latest version of the Jira elements, this implies that the Teamwork Cloud to Jira connection was created when the Jira issue was in an earlier state. One additional technical detail worth clarifying. Jira is not a configuration-managed repository in the formal sense. Syndeia recognizes different versions of Jira issues by different timestamps. It should be noted that graph analysis by Gremlin query, also available through the Syndeia Web Dashboard, treats multiple version visualizations somewhat differently. With graph queries, all versions of the connections and model elements can be shown in the same network diagram. The final situation in the Digital Thread Explorer, shown here, shows only the current state of the system. The same situation in a Gremlin query would show both the original and updated connections between requirement and code files. However, the original versions of the connection and code file are shown with dashed outlines to show that they have been superseded. Syndeia preserves all earlier versions of the intermodel connections as a record of the evolution of the digital thread. However, a small modification of the Gremlin query can hide the non-current connections. The best way to present a dynamic digital thread is still a work in progress. We welcome your suggestions through the Interclax online help desk.